to another episode, everyone. My name's Emery Wolf. Joining me is
Nick Lamb. No, it's Matt Howard. I guess Nick's not around, is he? So I'm trying to be filling his boots.
Yeah. So week 2 with Matt Howard, and this is just 2 camera guys, and we are your camera guys today. We have another slogan that I'm supposed to say, and I totally botched that. That's beautiful. Good work, Emery. But let's move on from that.
Did you buy Nick a Christmas present by any chance?
I bought him some time away from me.
Is that right? Very nice. Did Nick buy you anything by any chance?
He also bought me some time, I think.
He's a little tight pockets, right? So
yeah.
I can.
Our time's cheap.
Yeah. It's good time well spent.
Actually, how was your Christmas, Matt?
You know what? It was good. It was really good. We were hosting for our family for the first time, and I overcooked the beef a little bit, but oh well. You know what? Live and learn. There's always other Christmases.
Yeah. Hey, at least you weren't looking for the beef, right? Where's the beef?
That's true. That's true.
Were you watching like the Tiger King or something over Christmas?
No, I wasn't. Do you like the tiger in the background?
Yeah, that's what I'm referencing there. Why do you have a tiger in the background?
So actually, our neighbor gets given a bunch of stuff. He's just this nice community guy that goes around and helps the old ladies out and the old gentlemen, sweeps their street. And then somebody came out with this tiger one day. So then he re-gifts everything, and he saw me crossing the road. He's like, "Hey, do you want a tiger?" Like, why not? So I brought it inside, and everybody was scared of it. Like, it actually legit, like the eyes looked like a legit tiger.
Like
so everybody was scared about it.
Your
the cat's
taken the long
4
way
days it took 4 days for the cat to sort of.
And your cat is like the most manliest cat I've ever seen.
That's right. It's a beast. He was like, yeah. And so our daughter as well didn't like it. And now she just pulls it around by the tail. So it's a common thing on our sofa.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump into some things here. We have a lot of things to talk about. I sent you a ridiculously long list, and I'm going to be real about this. This has been more prep than we've ever done for this show. There's been more things than I've ever sent Nick. So like you're jumping into the deep end of this with me, and Nick just got off scot easy. Like, what a jerk, eh? Some of the topics we're going to go over, some social media things I've noticed. Netflix, thanks Netflix. Canon's got some stuff going on that's interesting, and even some stuff about the Chainsmokers, which seems way off topic, but you know what, we're going to delve into it. Okay. Starting off, social media. Do you spend a lot of time on your social media, Matt?
Do you know what, I kind of do a bit through work, but I've been staying away from it. I don't personally post, just because I find I do a lot through my work. So when I'm doing my spare time, I don't really have much to do with it. But saying that, I do still use YouTube a lot for tutorials, various things, watching people build cabins in the woods, that kind of thing, the usual stuff you do in your downtime.
With your work stuff, have you noticed a change in it lately?
There has been this big change to go towards Instagram. I'm not so much Facebook anymore, but saying that, there is a push with Twitter and that kind of stuff, getting information out.
What about in the platforms themselves? Have you noticed like the platforms changing? Or specifically the algorithm?
I'm not so sure with the algorithm. I don't have too much to do with that in that sense of what works and what doesn't work. I know these sort of have their recipes for the different platforms of what does work. Maybe current affairs works better on Instagram, or showing some photos, whereas the harder news is better on Twitter.
What I've kind of noticed lately, so we have our page chasing yesterday. On Facebook. So all of the bigs, except for TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm going to get back to TikTok on that. But all of those big social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, have changed on us lately.
Yeah.
So what I think happened is they're trying to copy the algorithm that TikTok's using. Or there's one other thing that might have happened with Chasing Yesterday on Facebook specifically as well. So anyways, using Chasing Yesterday as the example, in the last month, maybe month and a half, 2 months or something, our
Mhm.
posts all of a sudden are the engagement on it has gone through the roof. It's almost doubled.
Wow.
So like typically I don't do much action on it. I post a photo, I barely even share it. And I would get on average, I would say somewhere between 100 and 200 likes on the photo.
Hmm.
And a handful of comments, whatever they are. Now those likes were like every post I've done in the last month has had like 400 likes, 400 to 600. So something's gone on like where more people are seeing it, and something's gone on where it's got some longevity as well. So I had some posts like even today. So the post I posted on last week Monday got likes and comments today, which that's like a whole week after. That was unheard of before on
Hmm.
Facebook. So I think they're either trying to keep up with TikTok, or we passed a threshold. We also passed 30,000 followers at that
Okay.
time. So I'm not
And
too
that
sure if
started
it's,
bumping these up. It started
yeah.
bumping these things.
So one of those things is going on. Not sure
Yeah.
which one. Moving to Instagram, what I've noticed is a lot more photographer posts are popping up in my feed. A lot more sponsored posts are popping up in my
Mm.
feed. Um, it's good and it's bad. I hate this. I loathe the sponsor stuff, but I'm seeing more photos from around the world, which is kind of interesting. And I've also noticed my stuff has been getting more noticed around the world too. So, some random there's more opportunity for some random person in New York and Japan to see it and like it now than there was before.
Okay.
I'm going to attribute that to TikTok again. Um, so that's been interesting to see. Twitter has also changed. The same sort of thing. I'm seeing more of these photographer posts.
Mhm.
One of the things though that's annoying me a bit on Twitter is I'm seeing all these posts of like, hey, photographer, share your favorite blue
Yeah,
photo.
I've seen some of those as well.
It's
Yeah.
coming up every day. I never used to get stuff like that. And now it's coming up every single day. I even I started kind of doing it. And then once I kind of realized like it almost seemed like a Twitter ploy, I kind of stopped a little bit. I still been
So
looking a little bit.
is there anybody gaining rights from that, or does it all belong to that platform? So why would there be a push to get those photos out there? Is it is it maybe a resharing thing or a repurpose thing going
Uh,
on?
I think it's all about driving metrics, right?
Right.
So those people are driving their own metrics, and Twitter is like amping those posts to drive their metrics so they look good in comparison to TikTok.
Okay.
And like I
Yeah.
said, using the TikTok algorithm. I'm guessing.
So it's platform wars.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting to see, and it's had actually a fairly drastic effect. The other thing I'm going to say I'm seeing on Instagram. Have you ever heard of the $1.80 theory?
You know what? Just the other day, but that was because the lovely Emily Wolf told me about it.
Yeah. So,
I hadn't actually heard about it before.
did you read everything on it?
I didn't. Like, I kind of scraped on the side of it. It's kind of interesting though, hey?
Yeah.
It is
And like
interesting.
absolutely it would work. So there's this guy, I'm gonna butcher his name, but it's Gary Vaynerchuk, I want to say. Came up with this theory about $1.80. It was specific for Instagram. So I'm gonna talk about it in Instagram. This could actually be done anywhere. But basically his thing was if you put in your 2 cents on enough things a day, spend $1.80. So that's 90 things. So essentially he kind of had it worked out too, like 70 things in a day and then comment on 20 or something like that. And the whole idea is if you're doing that, that will boost your, the people who follow you or whatever. And yeah, like 100% that will work. There's also a platform There's actually a couple platforms. The simplest one is $1.80. So if you go to $1.80.com, that's the actual platform. And it will automate this for you. So it'll just find things that are in your interest, I think, by using hashtags, and go in and like 10 of them. So on my stuff now, every day, there's like all of a sudden like 20 likes, and it's all the same person liking 10 photos in a row or whatever it is. And like, I'm pretty sure they're using this. And that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. Do you think that's like, do you think it's smart? Do you think it's cheesy? Like, should people be using something like $1.80.com?
Well, I don't think, I think it goes to show that social media is not as organic as everybody thinks it is, right? And it's kind of interesting that those algorithms can exist, or those sort of these kind of niche bots can exist. It doesn't kind of surprise me by any means. It's a business at the end of the day. We always like everybody signs up for free. So it doesn't really have alarm bells with me. I can see as a personal, like as an artist form, you always want things to be organic, and social media has been a very good way for us to keep our metrics.
You think
right?
you would ever do something like that?
I don't think so. Not at the minute. I've got more than enough on my plate to do that. But I guess if you're trying to grow something, maybe it's worth a try, right?
Yeah. I've got such mixed feelings by it, because like in my heart, I know it would work, and it would work almost 100% of the time. And if you actually did it for real, you probably wouldn't even have to spend $1.80, like be super sincere. You could do it with even less. And I think that's a better way of doing it. Like, I almost feel like $1.80, like the platform of doing it, the automation is there's almost like a moral issue with it. But at the same time, like, how can I really criticize it? Like, I mean, there's this opportunity everywhere you go in this age. So I don't know, very mixed feelings about it.
I mean, would you think of it any differently if you were joining the social media world for the first time, or trying to make some sort of business around it? Like the 22-year-old self, what would you, how would you sort of navigate around this?
You know what? It's funny too. The word you said in there that I liked was business. So uh, I work for a business. Would I do this for our business? I actually think this would be a great idea for our business.
Yeah.
For me personally, it wouldn't be something I would do. Again, like when I see it on my page, it makes me want to follow that person less.
Right.
And maybe it's just me, that knee-jerk reaction, the old Rage Against the Machine feeling in me. And just like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna just do this because, and so I don't know, still trying to stick to meeting. But maybe, at the same time, like, that's what's the word to call that? It's, like that's what makes me have like I don't want to call it an ego about it or something, but that's sort of how it comes off too. Yeah.
What are you able to unlike? Like, would you go as far as unliking or unfriending these people? Or?
That's another thing. Like, I don't know a Saskatchewan photographer who's done it. I don't think I've seen a Saskatchewan person do it. But yeah, anyways, it's out there. The next thing I think we should talk about real quick here is Netflix. Netflix raised their prices. Basically, I believe their reason for raising it was sort of saying, the cost of everything's going up. But another portion of the talk in all the articles was that Netflix is not growing. So I'll touch on that in a bit. How do you feel about Netflix raising their prices? Do you actually subscribe?
We do, yes. Yeah, we've had it the longest out of all of the subscriptions. We really like it. It's got that array for a family. It's got like a good platform, or I guess a good library of content for kids.
Is it annoying that they keep raising prices?
I think it's just life, though, isn't it? It's just inflation, and that's how things go with subscriptions. Like, if you look at Adobe, that it's never going to get any cheaper for Adobe, right? And you pay a premium for that. I find with Netflix still that it's a good price. So I think it's a good price.
Do you guys have other things? Do you use another streaming service? Do you have cable?
No, we don't. We cut the cord, believe it or not. Yeah, we just do everything. I have for some of the terrestrial TV, I have Gem. We do Disney.
How much, not to pry too much into your life, but how much roughly do you think that costs?
Well, we're probably up to, I'd imagine that we're probably up again to the price of what we would have been beforehand, right?
Yeah.
With the extended internet now packages, Disney, Netflix. I think we accidentally subscribed to Amazon Prime through the kids. So we're right up there.
So one of the other reasons they give for this is that Netflix isn't growing anymore. And that's the part that like ruffles my feathers about this, because like you're at some point in time, Netflix isn't going to grow because there's only so many people to subscribe. And then when you get into that rotation like you're subscribed to 3 or 4 things, and you're already paying the same amount as you used to, and you know you also as a family have a limit, right?
Yeah.
So then if Netflix raises it, the other ones do, and then all of a sudden it's all higher, and eventually you're going to drop one of them because you're just not going to afford it or want it or think it's of value anymore. And then they're going to raise their prices again, and then it's going to happen again, and everyone's going to keep raising their prices because, well, they're not growing anymore. And it's like, well, surprise, surprise, what did you guys think was going to happen? So that kind of bugs me a bit. Am I wrong in thinking this? Convince me I'm wrong in thinking this.
No, I think at the minute, Prime's probably got the share, right? Amazon have probably got, like with all their shows that are going on, a lot of the stuff that we're watching on there, Yellowstone, we're watching The Boys, all that kind of stuff is basically, it feels like a higher production value. So until I don't know, Netflix, it's got a good array of stuff at the minute, but I guess if they're not going to grow it, then they're going to start losing subscriptions, and then what?
What I like what you just said, talking about the production value. So I think that's sort of where it lies as well, like the answer to Netflix problem. And you're not necessarily going to grow. You have to realize that you might not grow. But if you want to keep customers coming back, I feel like the way to do that is to make sure that your content is top notch. So instead of spending, say they have a $300 million budget and they produce, 360 shows, but 300 of them are garbage, that's not going to keep people coming back. But if you take that same budget and produce 60 shows that are really good, and you forget about all the garbage, that might keep people coming back, in my theory.
Right. Maybe there's always that fight to find the show, right? Like,
and it's difficult, right? Like, it's difficult to make a hit show. It's difficult to make that Yellowstone, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Costner doesn't just show up and it's pure magic.
What is he?
Well, in the Field of Dreams, it was pure magic. But anyways, we're going to see like some action on this and things. You're going to hear more, I think, about these subscription services. I think we're going to see more people get angry with them. And yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future is. But I kind of feel like this is a defining moment, and it's over such a stupid thing, just raising the price by like $2 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Another topic, Matt, I want to talk to you about quickly. Did you watch the album tease for the Chainsmokers?
No, I should watch that now. Let me watch it.
Do you even know who the Chainsmokers are?
Yeah, I know who the Chainsmokers are. Nobody knows who they are, though, right? Wasn't that album T? Album T. What was their big song? Chainsmokers.
I don't know, it's like something in Paris, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'll explain what they're doing here because it's good fun. Like if you even go to the chainsmokers.com, their website right now,
Mm-hmm.
you show up there, and what's on it's one of those photo captcha things, and it says select all the squares, the chains, select all the squares with the chain smokers. If there's none, click skip, and then it's just a bunch of pictures of honestly kind of like famous dudes like Matt Damon's in it and Chad Kroger and stuff. Uh, but what ended up happening, there was kind of this, I think there was this internet joke around that like no one would really know who the chain smokers
Yeah.
are. So which is funny because I asked you if you know who they were, and you're like, oh yeah. But it like you didn't.
I think I know who the music, right? But it's
Yeah.
any of those dance.
Yeah, right. But you'd never be
Artists.
able to pick their faces out in this captcha thing, right?
Right. I'm just looking at it now.
So they took this joke and ran with it. So the captcha's their website now. They also did this video where basically the like producers start off like, we can make a chain smoker album, we don't need them, we'll just pick two random guys, no one knows who they are, and these two guys go through and sort of fail on the album, and then at the end they finally call the two real chain smoker guys, and yeah, we can do an album. It's genius marketing, I think. Like I haven't seen something I've been so impressed with lately out of like, and especially from a group like the Chainsmokers. Like I would have never expected that from them. Anyways, it's worth checking out if you haven't checked it out. It's pretty fun.
I did submit it, but I don't know what happened. When do you know whether you're right or wrong once it's submitted?
Yeah, I imagine it just lets you into the website.
It does. And then there's a photo of them in the background, so I'll be better next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I thought it's pretty good. I thought it's worth mentioning. I think people, if you haven't watched it or seen it, you should check it out. It's pretty funny. And yeah, hopefully the album holds up too. I don't mind some of their music. The last thing I want to talk about with you before we get into like the thick of camera stuff that we should be talking about, Canon. There was another little news story that crossed my path that I think is worth mentioning. So this is the heading for it. New film studio will be built in space by 2024. What are you thinking when you even hear that, Matt?
Some pretty good out the world movies going on, right? But it like, so what's the advantage here? Like, who's gonna pay for the tax credit? You know, it's interesting. How does it get you? I mean, it's out of the world thinking. Kind of, what do you? What's the incentive to send somebody out there up and shoot them? Is the zero gravity? I'm guessing is the big one, right?
What it really does for you. Like I don't know. I guess you can shoot some real zero gravity scenes, but then like I feel like your methodology would be like, well, that will save us some time in post production, right? But it'll cost you $1 million to get there. Like, is that worth it?
And it looks like it's Tom Cruise that's spearheading this, right? So
yeah, so I could be wrong on this too,
issue.
But what I think it is, so it says Axiom Space won NASA's approval to build essentially another international space station, and then I think Tom Cruise's company, their company they set up for it, the Space Entertainment Enterprise, which is a terrible name. Thank you, Tom Cruise. I think they're gonna have like a little studio within that place. Now, here's the other thing too, is I kind of wonder too if this doesn't, so that space is sort of like split, like maybe NASA gets to use it for some of their stuff and maybe we'll see more stuff from NASA. I don't know. But yeah, it just, the other thing too, when you think about those guys going up in rocket ships, the Jeff Bezos and, the Nike guy and whoever else have all gone up. Hey, what do you think about that?
I guess, people can pay for what they want to do. I mean, if I had the choice of going traveling the world or going up in a spaceship, I'd probably travel the world.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, going up into space, apart from the novelty of being up into space,
For 3 minutes too, or something,
never,
whatever it is.
they're never going to talk about the weather or, I had a lovely time up in space in a dark hole sort of thing. What was it like? Well,
Bezos was
where,
pretty happy with it.
I
They've
could
all
just
come
go
back
swim with
quite happy.
dolphins.
Yeah, it seems like such excess. Like it seems like you guys, do we really need to do this? We have like better things we could solve on Earth. And yeah, I don't know, man. It seems like such overkill for things, and it just doesn't seem that necessary. But I guess, what do I know? I'm sure someone.
I mean, I'm
will.
sure it fulfills the curiosity of mankind, right? The what's going out there and experiencing what's happened over the past half decade or whatever. Half century, I should say. A little bit more than that. But
yeah, I don't know. Well, I
not
guess
for me. I'll stay down here.
And we'll wait and see and what actually comes. Like, for all I know, we could get the most amazing movie ever done up there for some reason. Or we're gonna get porn, because that seems to be the route that everything takes.
Are they inclined to also get around like union work hours out there? Does that apply anymore?
Yeah, but I mean, like, how do you still have to spend so much money just to get into space? And then to get back, like, there's risk involved there too. Like, how do you even justify that just for an actor to go up? Like, it just seems so excessive. But I guess it's going to happen whether we like it or not.
That's true. Maybe they'll just get rid of the actors if they don't like them. Lost in space, send them out there.
Just don't let them come back.
See you later.
Oh, it's funny. We probably should have started with this in all seriousness, but there's two big things that has come from Canon lately. I'm going to save what I think is the biggest one for last. You and I are going to do a PSA, or we've probably already kicked that out first because it's quicker, on the Canon R5C. But let's talk about the R5C for a little bit. I'm going to pop open B&H here. I'm going to run through some of the specs on it. And they got like a good comparison here too, of the R5 to the R5C to the EOS 70, which is their other cinema camera with the RF mount. So basically, like, your main things, your sensors seem very similar. I mean, C70's got a little bit of a different sensor, but it really doesn't matter that much for it. Not my mind. The lens mount's the same, sensitivity is the same. Dynamic range. So the R5, and I suspect this has more to do with the video than photo, but the R5's got 12, the C70's got 16 stops, and it says not available for the 5C, but I mean, it's the same sensor as the R5, so I'm going to say it's going to match it. Your resolutions get a little bit funky here too. So basically, the C has the same stuff as the R5, but a whole bunch of added stuff to 8K and 4K. This where it gets interesting. The more expensive C70 only does 4K, but it does 4K up to 120, which matches the R5C. So that's kind of fun, I guess. Your color bits are different. So you got 12-bit on the R5C. You got 10-bit in the other two. Raw video outputs are slightly different. The C70 does not have raw video, which I think is interesting. Oh, wow. And they introduced a raw light on the R5C, which I think might be like a firmware update for the other ones. We'll see what happens. Recording limits. So obviously we've all heard about the limits on the R5. The 5C and the C70, 0 limits, they're saying, which I actually think they'll probably be pretty close to that. They did a new log on this one. I think they might do again, like with some updates, add that to the other one. So a little bit different for this one.
That's a log 3 now, is it? Is that where they're at with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say the autofocuses are similar. The C70 has something different going on. I assume that's specific to video stabilization. Here's where things get a little interesting. So the R5 has the 5-axis. The C70 has 5-axis. The R5C only has an optical still stabilizer and a digital video stabilizer. So from what I've seen, it's not as good as the other two, but it wouldn't deter me from the camera, especially for video. And for photo, it's irrelevant. I shouldn't say that. Like, I'm using the EOS R, which doesn't have in-body stabilization, but the lenses do. And for me, it's irrelevant.
Right. I mean, when you've got 8K, there's no reason why you can't warp stabilize. Right?
Yeah, right. And I mean, it's doing it digitally too, so it like crops it in for that digital stabilization. So it already is doing it for you. It just has a little bit of crop, which doesn't bother me. And especially too, like, I feel like you shoot more often on a tripod than you do run and gun. What about yourself with the stuff you're doing? Do you shoot more run and gun, or do you shoot more on a tripod?
Mostly tripod stuff. Yeah, and then if not monopod, throw it on a monopod.
Yeah. Obviously, the video C70's got more like connectors and stuff like that, which is fair, but it's also a way bigger body. Top handle, obviously, on that one. But the Tascam unit to connect stuff, I think that also works as a top handle. It connects to the hot shoe, and then you have XLR inputs. I think it actually gives you some other inputs as well. Nice. Battery life. This is one of the things people in videos were complaining about. So the R5C uses the same battery as the R5, which when you're shooting 8K video, it can't keep up.
Swallowed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're already talking about ways to deal with this, and this is like a big drawback for people. But in my mind, it's like you can still use a battery grip with it to extend your battery life. You can use outside. I actually have the unit, so I can plug in like a regular, just like a battery you would charge your phone with and use it, stuff like that. So for me, it wouldn't be a deterrent. Maybe if you're trying to run and gun 8K all the time, it might be a deterrent. But I think it still shoots 4K fine on it, and you'll still get lots of time out of it. One video, I can't remember what they were shooting, but it sounded like you were getting 41 minutes out of a battery, which is pretty decent, especially for a battery like that. Now, you compare something like that to the C70. The C70 is using way bigger batteries, so clearly its battery life is king, but you're also paying for that as well. Here's a kick or two between the C70 and this one. The C70 is 2.6 pounds for the body. The R5C is 1.5.
Wow.
So yeah, just holding that in your hand, getting 8K over 4K, getting almost everything else at least on level, and then people still complain about it, which it's hard to believe. Like, from what I've read, should any of this be complained about?
As long as it works, then yeah, by all means. It is interesting, this sort of hybrid, why they're bringing it into a cinema range when they already have that going on. Right?
Actually, even that's a really interesting point to talk about.
Yeah.
Calling it a hybrid, I'm not even sure that's the right term for this camera. So what Canon did is basically, so there's a toggle switch on top that you switch between photo and video.
Right, similar to the digital stills.
Yeah. So
DSLR mirrorless stuff. Yeah, that
yeah.
they've
So
already done.
in photo mode, your menu
Yeah.
is all the same thing as your photo stuff would. It's the same stuff as on my EOS R. Then you flip it to video. It takes
Yep.
some time to kick over, which this is what one of the things that people are complaining about. But then when it gets into it, it goes into the full Canon cinema menus. So the same menu that's on the C70 is in this thing. And people are complaining about the 8 seconds it takes to flip it over. And it's like, well, this is almost like having two separate cameras, which is like a really interesting concept. And you know, taking 8 seconds to flip a button is a lot quicker than grabbing another camera from the bag and turning it on and doing whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, unless you're waiting for that exact point where you have 8 seconds and you've missed it.
Yeah,
that's a good road. You're always a good rodeo ride away from that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you started on video, and then by the end of it, you get the celly as a still photo.
It's pretty funny. I like that. Yeah, the other thing too, and again, this is weird in the scheme of things, but also at the same time, it makes sense, and they sort of, I'm not gonna say they had to do it this way, but anyways, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. So every button has sort of like two functions. So they'll have its regular function and then another function in white, and it looks goofy to me, but I'm not sure that's like in the production thing or not, whether that's going to actually happen. And like, I'm complaining, I'm saying it looks goofy, like who cares? At least it tells you what to do on it. And the whole purpose is so you can navigate those two separate menus entirely.
Yeah.
So Nick Lamb, I don't think he watched any of this stuff or went into it. Do you think this would be a great or a perfect camera for him to shoot Leroy and Leroy
on? Yeah.
and do
you know what? Like, it might save his back at what was it, 1.1 pounds?
Actually, here's another thing. Let's look up the C200.
1.7 pounds, right? There's barely anything to it there.
Yeah.
Like, that would save his back.
Well,
just right there.
Granted, like, so you put on an RF lens, which is also lighter. Like, I think I'm gonna search some stuff here and I'll throw this in here, but
they are still using the LP6s, hey? NH, that's interesting.
That's it's good too though, because you can use all the same batteries you already have. So if you have 1,000 batteries, you got 1,000 batteries, right?
That's amazing. Yeah. That they're still compatible like that.
Rather than like just switching the whole thing, so you have to buy everything brand new. And two, at the size that it is, like, what are you going to do with batteries? How do you get a bigger battery in that body, right, when it's the size of a mirrorless camera?
Yeah.
All right, so the Canon RF 70-200 f2.8, you know, that's a good lens to use for stuff if you're using the R5C. Just going to the specs here. Its weight is 2.35 pounds. So the total kit weight is what, almost 4 pounds.
Yep. There's nothing to it.
The Canon C200 body alone, so none of the grips, none of the attachments, none of the anything on it. Its weight, if I can find it. Wait.
I'm waiting.
Well, this isn't helpful. It says its package weight is 12.2 pounds. But that won't be the right weight. You're gonna have to do some other searching. C200 weight.
The other thing that'd be interesting is a 70-200 going to be a 70-200 with an 8K sensor?
Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
Because you're still shooting with a full frame sensor. The sensor's not bigger, is it? With it being 8K.
Yeah, it's still a full frame sensor. Like, so the
Okay.
exact same sensor that's in the still version of it. I'm calling it the still. It's not really. 3.2 pounds is the weight of the C200, which is what Nick is using. So that is half a pound. So the entire kit weighs half a pound more than what Nick is currently using just with a body, let alone lens and anything else he has connected to it.
I think you're concerned about him.
Well, he's getting old.
We should all just chip in $5 at a time, save Nick's back fund, get him a new camera.
Yeah, right. Where I sent him a microphone. It was this Saramonic microphone that connects to the iPhone. I mean, you can get other connections to connect, like a USB to connect to other phones as well. But so it's like a little clip. You plug it into the bottom of your phone, and then it's a wireless lapel mic to whoever straight into your phone. Looks slick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's still
Yeah.
like refusing to use his phone. Like that would be even lighter.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Leroy and Leroy needs to change. That's what I'm pushing for here.
But it's interesting. It feels like it's more consumer goods that we're getting into this realm again, into consumer goods, right? Because like I did the same thing. I bought these little Rode microphones, and they come as a 2 sets, and they work off just a 2.4 gigahertz range, and they're called wireless goes, and they just turn on, and basically you can set them at different decibels, but to a certain extent. But they're just a clip on. It's great for what I use. The RCMP, I would just go up to them and say, just clip this to your red surge, while you do this. And like, yeah, no problem. Whereas before you were feeding a wire and whatever, and they wouldn't want to do that at all, right? Whereas this, it's just a clip in now, comes with a windsock. Neat little things. Only $400. I thought that was super cheap for what they are.
And you like them a lot then, it sounded?
Yeah, the only thing I find is I can't bring down the gain to where I want it to, because they're always shouting. So I basically trialed with where the position was with the mic. I brought it down to when the commanding officers are coming in, or when the sergeants are coming in, and actually shouting orders and stuff. Like I couldn't quite get that far enough away from them without it peaking or going into the limits there. So that's the only issue. But like as a sit down interview, it would be perfect. And like outdoors, the audio was so crisp with that windsock on, and it came free with the windsocks. The batteries seem to last good. They'll actually back up a record, so if you can turn that on and off. So if you do come into an issue where your receiver wasn't picking it up, or there was something going on, you can always just copy it straight off of the transmitter. So
yeah. You mentioned the word consumerism, and I kind of feel like you're right, because I'm assuming these things are kind of like plasticky, almost a little bit cheap, or do they feel good?
Yeah, no, they are. They're little cheap plastic things. I mean, there's lots of technology behind them. They've got a nice LCD display. But yeah, like I wouldn't want it to fall on the floor, and potentially somebody's going to walk on it, and that's it, right?
Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that things seem to be going this way?
I think it's the option for more people to buy it now and have it available to, which is good for filmmaking. I think like it's good that more people are getting involved. Does it have the manual functions that I want it to have? Not really. But then if I did want it to have that, I'd probably be looking at triple the price.
Yeah. Thinking back to the conversation of Netflix. So clearly I'm a quality over quantity person. And there's times now, I don't know which way I should think about this, but I always think like it's a bit of a problem that cheaper things get, because then all of a sudden you get all these people making stuff, and like people think they're really good at it, but they're really terrible. So then we get this like whole flood of stuff that is just not worth anyone's time. But when you're trying to find it on the internet, because there's 10 million cat videos, like how do you know which cat video is the ones worth your time? You like that analogy?
Yeah. I don't know.
Like it seems like a problem, right? From that
it does. World
consumer
problem.
of entertainment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I
you
agree.
waste your time. It's one of my things, pet peeves too. I feel like I waste so much time watching so much stuff that just doesn't get me anywhere.
How do you feel about when you're sort of evaluating gear? Because we talk about this R5C, but realistically, are we ever going to buy it? Probably not at that price point. Maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, it may be a reasonable price to buy it. But I don't know. It feels to me there's been so many things, and I thought there'd be a closure on Sony and Canon professional gear coming through, and yet they're bringing out the cinema range. What's coming next? It's always a push.
It's the Sony Canon competition seems to just be heating up, eh?
Just elevated. But do consumers, like, are they going to see like consumers dropping off and not actually buying it?
Yeah.
Like you, right? You've got your basic R range, and like, I guess you're shooting with it right now, hey?
Yeah.
It's a really nice camera.
Yeah. Honestly, Matt, at some point in time, I would like the regular R5 or something along that lines, just to extend. Nick and I have talked about it extensively. I've thought about getting the Fujifilm GFX 50S, which is a medium format mirrorless camera.
But you'd have to obviously invest in the lens range for that then?
Yeah, you have to buy all new Fuji lenses. It's not quite the same as the sort of stuff you can get with Canon. Like obviously there's a lot more options. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what it entails, right? And to go Fuji too, like to do all that, it would end up costing me, to get what I currently have with Canon, it ended up costing me like $15,000, right?
Right. And then does it just pivot you into the photo world, or does it give you an option to do video? Does it even give video? Or
it does. Yeah. Again, I always get less and less concerned with the video. The real appeal to me is that sensor size. So just when you start getting to the bigger sensors, the stuff I really like about it is, well, it lets more light in because it's bigger. And B, so sorry, I shouldn't move on to B, but like, so there's certain situations where that kind of helps with. So even though you're using an F4, it still is, you can still do astro with that, right?
Yeah.
Because the sensor is bigger. Also, because it's letting more light in, runoff of things. So like the I don't want to confuse this with dynamic range, because that's not what's different. It's the fact there's more light hitting it, which means the dark parts of my face would get more light exposure, so the dark would look a little bit better. And then from moving from dark to light, or from the shadow here to light, is it's a smoother runoff in it, because the sensor's bigger, so it's got more range to fill across it. It's just those sort of like little things. It just makes images look a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper, but really it's not doing anything different. It's just strictly because that sensor size is larger and there's more data hitting it. But yeah, like, and honestly, Matt, I might do it at some point in time too, right? Like just to it all depends on what happens with the R lineup. But yeah, so that's the sort of thing I'm looking at, the regular R5, or maybe making a switch to Fuji at some point in time, or running both systems, having a Canon system to do the zoom stuff, which is what that Fujifilm will never be able to do as well, and then using the Fuji to do, like, when you hit that epic landscape and you want to go wide, and that's when you use it.
Yep. I wonder who I'll be buying my camera off then, you or Nick. Hey?
Yeah.
Is it going to be the C200 or the R?
Yeah. That's another good point. So the camera you're using, I always botch this, but it's the Sony A7 S2. That's been a solid camera for years. It's still the one that everyone says that, these companies are trying to knock off that chopping block. I guess technically they have did they pump out a 3 of that now?
Yep, 3
Yeah.
came out last
So
year.
the 3's out now. And then they had that other weird basic version of the A7S3, but just strictly for video.
In the cinema line, there's the
whatever
RX.
it was. Yeah, something like that. And I don't know what it was. Do you think this R5C knocks those two off? It's taken the crown and put it back on Canon's head instead of Sony's.
It'd be interesting to see. I know just the picture that Sony was kicking out and how it can be manipulated. I always really liked what I was getting off that A7S2. It would be interesting to see a consumer report from this Cinema R5, for sure. Yeah. I know, like all the stuff that's come from the Sony on their cinema line has been really positive stuff. So whether they can contend with that, and Sony's just been around for years in the broadcast world, so like for professional cameras, especially video, because you've still got to have those go-tos, those easy, quick, user-friendly things to go, like when you're out in the cold, for instance, or like just having the little tabs that get you gain, or switching white balances real quick. Sony have kept on to that still, which is kind of neat to see.
Yeah, we're really splitting hairs with it, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, like if somebody gave us one of these cameras, we'd be over the moon, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just wonder, like, it's interesting. Like, if I was to go for that cinema one, that R5, I still find it very DSLR like, which sometimes is an annoyance to like not being able to get to things as fast as you could, or
or like Kenton said in the other show, and I've actually had this talk with Nick as well, but like, say someone shows up at an event with an iPhone, and like, what do you
you're just an iPhone hater. Just an iPhone hater.
Yeah. I bought a new iPhone Mini.
Good for you.
Anyways,
now you're officially a videographer.
Yeah. Like, so there, to wrap a little more around this, I was listening to another podcast. This photographer was on it, and he'd never used a camera before. He's only ever used his iPhone. His work, like, clearly he understands light and all this other stuff. His work was fantastic. And he's on the podcast talking about, hopefully I can get some, jobs with these other companies and stuff before. And he flat out says he doesn't understand, he doesn't know what the settings do, like what exactly f-stop, how that's affecting the image. And so then he's going to show up at a client shoot, say whatever, a car dealership hires him to come in, and he shows up with his iPhone. Like, what's that car dealership going to do? They're going to be, you're going to have two things. They might let him do it and be like, okay, cool, thanks. Or they might kick him off. And even if they do let him do it, they're going to watch it and be like, well, he did this on his iPhone, we can do this. And all of a sudden he's lost his job.
Yeah, they could do that. Or whether he's getting good grip gear that sort of hides the fact that he's using an iPhone, maybe. Is that what it'd be interesting to see, because I haven't heard this podcast, but what exactly is he doing differently that people don't know about, or people aren't aware of the features, right?
Yeah, it really is interesting. Again, like you make fun of me for being a little anti-phone and stuff, which I am.
It's okay. Like I don't hold it over you at all.
But it really is the way of the future, right? Like, it's the way everything's going to go. There's no escaping it. It's because
I think so. Just looking at the past couple of generations of smartphones coming in, just the way that they've marketed themselves on cameras, and this sort of even putting the iPhone into portrait mode now, right? The past 3 generations, I think, of 4. We're getting into the iPhone 14 now. So, but just being able to select your f-stop and like think about depth of field and stuff, and people always want to crank it, right? And really make the most of it. But it's to the point now where you can actually go back and change your f-stop of what you took it at. It's just nuts, absolutely nuts.
Yeah, right. Well, another perfect example. So the lens I'm shooting on, 2.8. Right now, currently, it's shooting 2.8. But when I take it out to the field and take photos, am I ever at 2.8? Oh,
right.
I'm at like f8, f11, f22 even, like just ridiculous things because I'm trying to cut the light and I'm trying to extend that depth of field, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whereas here, it's great. I can use it. So now it becomes kind of a multi-purpose tool.
You're shooting with how many lenses do you have at your disposal? Because at the beginning, where you just shooting with the prime, didn't you just have a prime to begin with?
So when I switched over to the EOS R, that's all I had was my Rhode lens.
Okay.
So 24 millimeter. Now what I've done is I finally bought the 70 to 200 so I could get some zoom, and then, which is on the camera right now, mostly so that I could get autofocus.
It's nice. It's very nice
because the other one doesn't have it. Then was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I purchased this.
Ooh, is that this? You were talking about that on one of your previous shows. Is that this? It's the 800.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Twist and then it pops out. Function for storage.
So are you able to see how long the driving line is at McDonald's, like the drive-through?
Yeah, you can see pretty far with it. So basically, it's I picked it up used for what I think is a steal. Nick think I should have lowballed the person on it, but anyways,
he's got no heart.
He does. He's heartless, that guy. But anyways, picked it up for what I pay $700 for it. And so now when we're out and about and there's a deer running out in the field, I actually have a shot at getting it with this thing.
Nice. Does it have stabilization then for it, or?
Yeah. So autofocus, it's got a focus limiter and then stabilization. Its only downside is I even hate that I'm saying this. It's f11, so like it's got to be pretty daylight when you're doing it. I've also noticed too now this isn't a problem with the lens. So the first few things I tried doing were these things way off into the distance. When you do that, it comes back like a little fuzzy, right? It doesn't look like tack sharp. So you still need to essentially hunt whatever you're doing. The closer you are to it, the better the light source on it, the better it's going to be. You can't just show up to a field, point it, and expect it to be perfect.
Yeah.
So it'll take a little work with that. I'm not going to just have bangers right away, but I'm sure I'm going to figure it out in a hurry because I've already noticed that and seen the differences in certain things. So but yeah, hopefully at some point in time I'll get some good shots of stuff. I wouldn't mind getting some like a good buffalo shot or something with it.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 lenses I have for this camera.
Okay.
Now, I technically have a macro lens, which you've seen me use, right? Because that's how I capture the film. With the adapter, I can also use it with this camera. I also have the fisheye lens, which I don't use very often, but with the adapter can also use it with this camera. So technically I'm up to, what is that, 5 lenses? It's a lot of
Holy
lenses.
Smokes.
Yeah, just rolling in lenses.
Good for you.
But really too, the other thing I have, or I can use is I've got a film camera, an old Canon film camera that I can use those EF lenses on as well.
Right.
So that's kind of a perk of keeping those around as well and using those. And then I've got the Pentax film camera as well. So I've got tons of lenses, way too many lenses, more lenses than any man should ever have.
You got choices though. You can make artistic choices now.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna tell. That's what I'm gonna tell my mom. With all this money I've spent, I can make artistic choices.
Still got to justify to your mom as well. I love it. Mom, I want to buy another lens.
Yeah. So talking about this Canon stuff too, this is our last topic, and this is probably the most important topic I think that we need to be discussing on this show. Canon is done with DSLRs. Did you read that article?
I saw the headline of that article.
How does that make you feel?
It's smart. It's probably been on as a talking point for the past couple of years. And honestly, like, it's all going mirrorless. Like, it's just a sign of the times, really. No more clickety click. So, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, that's where they're going to be spending the money. That's where they're going to be doing the research and development going into these new lenses. So why would you put out a DSLR now?
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like, I'm not mocking the 1DX. I think it's Mark III is the new one out, which is the one they specifically said will be the last flagship DSLR. But like, I feel like if you put that up against the R5, even for an example, I bet the R5 blows it out of the water. Right. I bet that R3 even more so, right? It's a different beast of a camera. Yep. So when they do eventually make the R1, like, they're going to have 3 cameras that are all better than it, all in mirrorless. And people they're a little bit ruffled over this, right? Like and people are upset about it. And it's like, well, I'm with you. It's the sign of the times, and it was inevitable, right?
Yeah. And we were around to shoot DSLR stuff, so
yeah, that's
we'll be on our rocking chairs. Boy, when I used to shoot a camera, you used to go click click.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've gone from, in my lifetime, I've gone from shooting film to digital camera to DSLR to mirrorless. In my lifetime, that's a lot of like major changes.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of wonder what's after mirrorless.
Who knows? Like, the technology is going to get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
The one other thing I'm going to say about this is, so the article was, Canon's done with the DSLR. It specifically mentioned the 1DX Mark III. However, I don't think Canon's done with the DSLR yet. Their cheapest mirrorless camera is the RP, which is sitting just above $1,000, and that can't be their cheapest camera. There's rumors that they're going to do an APS-C mirrorless version, RF still. I guess I kind of like matching that line of thought. If you're going to kill it, like, you need an RF version that's hitting, that $500, $600 price range to be your entry point.
Yeah. So
I guess that's probably what they're going to try to do. I would have liked to seen them, keep full frame and keep trying to push it sub $1,000 and almost make like full frame your starting point. But it looks like it'll probably happen the other way. So anyways, they're going to keep the DSLR until they can hit that price point consistently, and that's all done. But once those sells, or they get that APS-C mirrorless and it's outselling those ones, then it's over. Yeah. They're done.
Well, I think so. I mean, it just goes to show how many cameras are on the market now that are mirrorless as well. So why would they keep up that technology with the reflex, the single lens reflex stuff going?
So with Canon being the largest camera maker in the world, how does this affect everyone else? Because it has to, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I guess sell your DSLRs now. But I mean, I kind of also wonder about the EF mounts, right? Like, they've obviously got a shelf life on them too. Even with the adapter, you can change them to the RFs, but eventually they're going to become somewhat not obsolete right away, but eventually down the line, they're not going to be serviceable. They're going to be a shelf thing.
It's funny you say that too, though, like, because I almost wonder too. So like, when you look back at the switch from film to digital,
Yeah.
and then people started going back to film, so that still like called for some of that old stuff. I feel like we're going to see a little bit of that after as well. So those lenses will get a good long lifespan until they realistically can't anymore.
Right.
Because isn't it weird to be talking about EF lenses as like retro lenses?
Yeah.
Like remember the day we were shooting on these shabby things?
But it's amazing how long they've obviously been very they've been well received for the past years that they've been around.
Yeah.
And the value is always held. That's the amazing thing. Like what I paid for my lenses now, back then secondhand, I could probably sell them like just as much, maybe a little bit less. It's crazy, like the retainability of these lenses.
Yeah, and I think that's going to continue for some time. Like I really don't think like I think like it's going to take like 10 or 15 years until like that RF mount really takes over their entire market.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with it. It'll be interesting. The lenses definitely are going to live longer than the cameras. So.
Yeah,
because history has proven that.
That's true.
Well, Matt, that has been quite the two show for you to kick things off. It is way later than we wanted to go, I think. We had a segment on this show called the Shelf of Shame. So before we wrap up, Matt, what is one, oh, come on. What is one thing that you have in your camera bag that you shouldn't have bought it?
I probably threw it into my cupboard. I have that's not worked for me. Okay, here, let me think about this.
Do you want me to share something with you so you can think and refresh an idea, sort of see what I mean?
Yeah, go on. Tell me something while I'm thinking about this, because I'm sure there's some shit downstairs that I've got.
This maybe isn't the best shelf of shame, but it's an item I really didn't use until recently. And actually I took it out on this weekend trip and actually kind of liked how it worked. The problem is that it gets in the way 9 times out of 10. So it's currently not on my camera, and I feel like it's a thing that should stay on my camera. This is an L bracket, which everyone talks is such the jam. So obviously your camera goes on there.
Yeah. Strap.
And then when you clip it into your tripod, you can clip it on the plate here and flip it around and go there. So when you're out and about, it worked pretty slick this weekend. The problem is anytime I need to change anything on it, battery, card, if I want to plug in my velometer, I have to either slide this thing over or remove it completely. So it just becomes like a pain all the time. And I'm currently trying to wager whether I keep this thing or not. And I'm not too sure if I do. So
do you want me to put it on my lovely shelf?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's going to happen. But it might
let me go have a look downstairs. I'll be right back.
Okay.
There must be something. All right.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, I got two things. This is not really shameful. It's more shameful my actions. This was my 6D, my beloved 6D that I dropped, and I actually shattered. I shattered it on the case and I don't know whether you can see that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love this camera.
That's actually a great concept. The shameful things we do as camera people.
Yeah, so that's my 6D, end of its life. It was actually on a tripod, and I was using 2 DSLRs at the time, and one fell over in the wind. And Scotty Goodwill, I was talking to him at the time. He was just at a food truck, and I was like, hey, I'm shooting with 2 DSLRs, and then in the background the other one went bang.
And that's why you invest in a good tripod. That's why tripods never wind up on the shelf of shame.
That's true. The other thing I've got, and Nick's Lamb actually sold me on this, is a gimbal, the glide cam. I never actually, I just used to fight with this the whole time. I've still got it downstairs. I've tried to sell it secondhand, and I used to call it the knee knocker.
Oh, yeah.
Just because all the time I'd knock it with my knee, and never really liked it. Couldn't really balance it. Watched Nick balance it like 10 times. Couldn't do it myself. So
Nick Lamb, that guy.
He was a pro at this thing. I don't know what he did to it. I think he had some secrets and some secret weights in other places because he could use it.
It's one of those things, you spend enough time with it, you sort of figure it out, and then you can roll. With that said too, Nick sold the most useless thing I've ever seen purchased. It was this massive car mount thing. He sold it on eBay and sold it within a couple days. So there's hope. If you post that thing on eBay, someone will buy it for sure. Because
Nick's a pro at eBay. Actually, I should get him to sell it for me on behalf.
That's a good idea. We should get Nick to do our work for us.
Right.
Because especially
he loves that.
Yeah, especially how we're doing his work for him now.
Right. Right. He's an eBay master. We'll pep him up. We'll tell him how good he is at it.
Yeah.
So there'll be eBay taking commission and then Nick Lamb taking commission. And we'll end up with like 30% at the end of
it. Yeah. Matt, before we jump off, is there anything else you want to know from me? This is sort of your opportunity. You work with the CBC. Matt Howard, folks, running the show on an interview on me. Let me have it. Whatever question you want to ask me, bud.
I want to know where my $10 is that you owe me.
Do I seriously owe you $10? Seriously, like I would need to transfer that right now.
I bought you wieners on Wiener Wednesday and I never saw the money from it.
Seriously?
No.
Like, don't mess with me, man. I hate owing people money. It's like an absolute pet peeve. It drives me bonkers. And then the worst thing is I'm old and I have a terrible memory, so I never remember if I don't pay like right away.
No, we're all good. We're all good.
Okay, good. Oh.
Let me start it up though. So you and Nick have both got your passion projects going on. Nick with his Leroy, and you're with your Chasing Yesterday. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you keep that sort of fire burning? We often do a lot of these things primarily as our income and stuff, but how do you keep something on the side? Where do you find your energy and your drive to go out on a weekend and do it?
Honestly, I think there's sort of two things happening. One, obviously it's my own passion. So when you go out and get like an absolute banger of a shot, like that keeps you wanting to keep going back out and being like, oh man, that was awesome. I've got some shots that they should be posted by now, but it's this sunrise of a church, and I did this like super panel of it. It's choice. Like I just want to keep doing that, and like I hardly ever think of doing panels when I'm out and about. But yeah, that drives me. The other thing that is really good for drive, and I'm really starting to learn this too, is a partnership with someone. Susan, like for Chasing Yesterday, Susan 100% drives me, right? Because she wants to go out, and I'll get that phone call like, hey, what are you doing? We haven't gone out in a while. We should go out. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Nick has Leroy, or other Nick, however you want to look at it. Leroy has other Leroy, or Nick has other Nick. You look at like the other big ones, right? Like Peter McKinnon has Matty Apoya. I would also say, it's bugging me, I can't think of his name, but the editor guy for McKinnon as well, right? So he's got these like partnerships and these relationships with people, and I think that's a big part of it, and that's what keeps you going, is making sure you keep those connections and you're working with other people. Again too, right? Like I was making fun of you before about not coming out with me, but like that's one of the things like that drives me, and I think the more you would do it, the more it would drive you.
Yeah.
Now, if photography is not your thing, that's perfectly fine. But you kind of almost need that, like with video too, like who can actually drive you with video, and who can be your partner, who can be your camera relationship buddy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What really works is the buddy system.
Yeah.
So make sure you get on and off the bus with the same person.
Do you like, I'm just thinking it leads into something else here. Do you find you're very passionate about what you do and you've kind of hit a cornerstone with it? But do you find you probably get a lot of offers to do other things that you don't necessarily want to do? How do you sort of blinder those out or put them to a side and just concentrate on what you really want to do?
I drastically changed everything that I did. Like, so I used to be in your shoes, right? And working all these video things, having a hard time saying no to stuff because it was always money. Eventually at some point in time, I kind of learned that money wasn't everything. And that I needed to be happy with stuff. And that's actually probably like when my photography stuff started forming. The other thing too, which helps me specifically in my portion of this is I've always worked another job. So I went from working in the film and television industry. You can see that sort of tumbling. So then I started working for companies and like communications departments or whatever. And so that supplied the income that paid for, house and lights and stuff. And then that afforded me to be able to have the option to pick and choose what I wanted as well. So yeah, when all of that started kicking off and, I started making more money with the side gig stuff, then yeah, I started, it was about 3 years ago. I completely killed all my video side of it and just like, no, I'm done. No more of that. I don't need it. Except for a few things that I enjoy, shooting the Pats, shooting the Riders, and my job.
Big Red's cooking show.
Do you know what? We haven't done that yet. And I want to. I've talked to Big Red about kicking it up again. He started another thing here though. So I'm not too sure if we're going to ever get to do it. The guy's always flipping and flopping and doing new things. But I think it would be fun shooting a cooking show, right? Like it's just, for some reason, it's like interesting, right? So yeah, but my thing's a little bit different, but ultimately that's kind of what it comes down to, I think, is this relationship to money and whether you're choosing money over other things. Yeah. And it's tough, right? Like you look at someone like Nick. So Nick, he was making his money by a completely other avenue, which really freed him up. He did some smart things when he was younger, which helped him out for that. Which set him up for now. So Nick also had like a pretty, I'm going to call both of our paths like easy at that. Like I think you're trying the harder path right now and trying to make it in this television thing. And honestly, you're never going to win the money battle at that.
No, I think like for me, the excitement is the day-to-day sort of live TV. And I think like subconsciously, I haven't realized this until probably like the past year or so. That's kind of the excitement behind it.
Which makes it harder though when you're struggling with that. Like, can I say no to this?
Yeah. I mean, it's always the extra stuff outside, right?
And the other thing that makes it harder is you have a wife and 2 small kids. Like, so like you can't just completely disregard money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. That is true. But then it's always like, so now, like, and me and Tiffany have talked about this. We're like, between us, we're professionals. We're doing very well for what we do, but it's trying to almost pivot and spend more time as a family. But then we've still got other things going on outside of it. And then now the kids are active doing stuff. And you probably remember this from when your girl was growing up, that swimming lessons are starting, soccer and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing a rider game anymore. but I
Yeah.
still really enjoy doing those at the same time. So then I'm in a sort of a juggle about, am I doing it for myself? But no, it's an income. Yeah, it's kind of a on and off balance.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. And I mean, the big thing with that one is, and the same with the Pats. I just really loved working in those tight unit crews,
Yeah.
right?
But I mean, if you can make it work, obviously, I think your family is probably the most important part of that. So as long as you're still making some compromises sometimes for the family
Yeah.
and some compromises for work, you'll you'll be fine. The other thing, actually, I'd recommend: do you guys budget? Wait, should I say, does Tiffany budget for you, Matt?
No, we just rumble month to month, really.
Uh, Nick and I, we keep talking about it, but budgeting, it sounds so stupid, but it really
Are
is
you and
like a
Nick moving
life.
in together?
Well, no, but I
Is that
mean,
why you budget in?
yeah, we budget together. We have the
This
same
is the
budget.
studio fund.
For just two camera guys, we have the same budget of $0. um, but yeah, just it's such a stupid thing, but it gives you like this power and control over money. And I always wish I like, looking at what I'm doing now, I wish I started doing this when I was 25, because then it would have just set me up further along than what I am now. And now I feel like I'm in control of my money rather than just spending it month to month and like, oh my God, I have a bill to pay and I just wasted my money on a lens. Like, that doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not. When I bought this thing, it was because the money was in the bank for it. If the money wasn't there, I chose not to buy it if the money wasn't there, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things. I think budgeting is really good. I think that, I'm not going to say it's going to solve your problems, but I think it would help you in that stuff as well, especially when money is part of that problem.
Well, let's pivot out of this back into the photography side of it. With chasing yesterday. Talk about a couple of the projects that you've been working on over the past year, and have you altered the way that you go out and gather? Is it still primarily you go in shooting the stills? Are you incorporating different stuff? Are you getting back into the video stuff? I know you'd gone out and done some stuff with drone before, not necessarily yourself, but you'd been out with a party and a drone.
Yeah, actually, the drone stuff was me. So Susan,
was it
with her son, bought a drone,
Okay.
a little Mavic Mini, and it was mostly just me horsing around on it because she was pumped about me using it. I was pumped about using it, to be honest, too. Just drones are fun. Yeah, more video, more stuff. We really should be doing it. The problem I have is that it's really hard to do video around this stuff, just because of the time it takes. So the whole trip, so to put things in perspective, so this last weekend we made a trip out to Mooseman. Mooseman's a 3-hour drive straight from Regina, which means in one day, if we want to make that trip, that's 6 hours of driving alone. Then we got stuck in a ditch, which was good fun, which killed 2 hours for us, right? So there's an 8-hour day. That's a full work day of like just nothing. And I'm supposed to bust out a camera for this and record this video. Like, it's just like, no, it's not exciting. It's not the thing, right? So then you get a limited amount of time to spend at stuff. And how I do things, it takes a long time to do, right? Especially like when I'm setting up long exposures and stuff. So setting up the tripod, it's this whole process. It takes me, actually, it's funny too. My post tomorrow on chasing yesterday actually details the time it takes for this stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, but like each photo itself, just one long exposure photo, probably on average, when you count the time of shooting it, the time through to the time of editing it, one photo takes me probably at least an hour. The very minimum it could take me is a half hour, but it on average is probably an hour. And it could take me up to 2 hours to do for one photo. That's ridiculous, right? Like, it's absurd. So yeah, trying to mix video in with that's difficult. But Susan and I both talk about it. We both think we should be doing it. There's kind of a I'll call it like mini documentary idea that we have with it that I think we should be doing. So hopefully we do start that sooner rather than later. Like all things, Matt, it's really just a matter of like, you just need to start doing it. And then once you start rolling. Yeah, other than that, like I just mentioned, this thing with Mooseman, the more spur of the moment we are, kind of the better. That's what makes it fun for us, right? Like obviously we're looking at Google Maps, picking out spots and doing things like that. So we kind of have a rough idea, but there's no real plan at the end of the day. And me and Susan sit in the car and we BS, and it's a lot of fun that way too. The sort of camaraderie you have in the car is really what that site is built off of.
That's amazing. And it's got such a good traction with it. Are you ever sort of pivoting towards what like people are interested in, or is it always about what you gather? Is it are you ever focused on how people perceive it, or is it more for the love of it?
That's a great question. And I think the funny part is Susan and I would have very different answers to that question. I could care less. Like if we had 12 people following it, that would be great. I mean, look at this show, right? Yeah, like, so it doesn't really bother me at all, or I don't think about it as much. Susan puts a lot more effort into it. She enjoys that, those sort of conversations that happen over photos, learning more about the history of things through it that happens in the posts. And I think sort of matching like what the audience wants, she would more lean towards that, whereas myself, I wouldn't. But is there value in it? Do I see the value in it? Absolutely. Should I do it? I probably should. Like, I should probably do it more often than I do. Just cause, right? But yeah, for the most part, I don't. Typically I'll post like a photo and I won't even look at Facebook until the next day or something.
That's amazing. Oh, really good. And you said you started using TikTok with it or not? Did you?
No, we're still just we have Instagram, which has a pretty small following. We don't spend a lot of time with that at all. And then Facebook's really the core thing. Right. TikTok is interesting. I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible for some reason. It's probably a wrong answer.
Yeah. I mean, it is stylized, right? Personality videos, I guess. I think more than anything.
Yeah, right. And I think like a lot of times too, like I would rather have people talk about my photography than me. Like why does anyone ever need to see my face? They don't.
Well, here you are. Look.
I know. It's honestly, it's been like a little conundrum I have in my own head that, the two devils on either side fighting over that. Like, why are you doing this, Emery? Do you even need to? Why are you putting your face out there? No one cares about you.
I think there's a real value to you and Nick doing this, though. Like personally, like just listening, because you often, when you're doing the job, you get so into what you're doing yourself and you forget other people are doing it around you. And then like it's been very refreshing over the past year for me to listen to you guys talking to different people, and I'm like, holy smokes, you talked to so and so, and like I've never asked questions to people like Hirsch about what the particulars, what's his drive of doing it. It's always been like, how are you, what have you been up to, and this kind of stuff. And you forget that people are really passionate just as much as yourself, and sometimes you just kind of get lost in that. So it's super interesting in that sense that you managed to connect local people, I guess, like and just different people that you've used, like Nansen, like Jeff Nansen, just a magic of an interview, right? Just so humble. Yeah, and like what he's done, but it's not flaunting it at all. It's just like giving everybody that opportunity to hear what he's gone through, that experience.
Matt, from your perspective too, having you watch it and hearing you react like that, think about what it's like for Nick and I, like, and that's like why we do this, right? Like we sit down, we walk away from every single interview like, wow, that was really good. Like we're almost like shocked by it all the time, and like we shouldn't be, but we are, and we're just like, we always walk away like, did you, and a week later, like, did you hear Jeremy Ratzlaff said this? Like, man, that was stellar. Or like when I'm editing it, I always have like these little tidbits like, oh, Nick, you said this was hilarious, right? Or like whatever it is. His Nikon joke in the episode before Christmas, by far the favorite thing I've ever heard on this show.
That's great. I mean, you're setting it is good for like setting a community around it. And maybe people like coming into the industry, just like it's just such a confusing industry, right? Because there's so many different avenues and so many different ways that it works for people. And, often enough, it doesn't work. And, you're not quite sure why it doesn't work, but no, it's good.
Yeah, for sure.
I've snow shoveled many a times listening to it on Spotify.
That is the way to listen to this show.
Hey, I'm Matt Howard, and I listen to Just Two Camera Guys while I'm snow shoveling.
I can't wait to cut that out and make its own little ad. It's gonna be beautiful.
No, it's all good. Thanks for having me on. I didn't really put any input into you. Should have read those bloody questions, and I could have asked one for you.
You've listened to our show. How much input does Nick have?
Nick, he's just in the background, but he's funny.
He is. He's hilarious.
That's some quirky ones.
He'll sit there and be listening, and then all of a sudden he'll just absolutely light me up, and it makes me laugh. Like, man, our NFT episode with Paul there's one joke in there too that he just absolutely destroyed me on, and all of us, like me, Paul, and Nick, we're all just losing it laughing for like 10 seconds. It was great.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so actually it's been fun having you on here too, so we can make fun of Nick a little bit more and have
and then you can make fun of me when he comes back, hey? That English person trying to imitate him.
Wow, we gotta I actually talked to Nick about like how excited I was to do this and like with you and stuff, and full disclosure, you sent some of these questions beforehand to me, so I kind of knew they were coming, and but I'm like, Matt's questions were super good. I'm like, I know I shouldn't be surprised by it. Like, he works with CBC, he does interviews all the time, so like he knows what to ask, right? But they're really good. And I'm like, we have to get a show where, like, one, we need a show where it's, Matt, Nick, and Emery again. So we need to get that arranged this year. And then we need a show.
I don't think you need me at all. Like, I mean,
no, we need.
Like, I was just listening. Your questioning is really good. Like, because you keep it moving and you keep it, like, it's easy to sort of get down with filmmaking. It's easy to go down the sort of depressing sort of making no money sort of thing. But I mean, it's you've got the right pick me up and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
and it's like the leading stuff.
I mean, like not even an interview, just three guys sitting down and shooting the breeze,
chatting,
so to speak, and that's what I think would make it. And then we also, yeah, right. That's one of my favorite episodes with Baracco, and or the time like me and Nick were talking about the '90s and growing up. Like, that's like one of the most real talks we've ever put on this show. Actually, to put some stuff in perspective too, like, the show is kind of like a facade almost at times, right? Like I'm not really that character that asks those questions. That's just how you need to get the interview. And like you said, keep it moving or whatever. That's not me. But when me and Nick were talking about the '90s and our weird parallel life, like, that was a real conversation. Like, the camera and lights disappeared. Me and Nick were just talking about it, and like, that's what came out. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel we need more of that. I feel like if we had a show that was all three of us together, it would be beautiful. We need to get like a little more regular at something like that. Talk about all these discussions from three different points instead of two. And now that you and I have done this, we definitely need a show with you and Nick, so you guys can make fun of me, right? Like, just make it fun, right? All these jokes, all these inside things.
I just want to be the guy that shoots your B-roll for the shelf stuff, right? And then so every time you get something, let me pick it up and have it for a few days, and I can add it to the shelf, and then I can do my I do some B-roll with that.
What's your company name?
Fresh. I can't speak so loud.
Fresh Cuts.
It was Fresh Productions. I'm still doing a couple of jobs under that name actually at the minute. So
like, well, it sounds like that's almost on the shelf of shame then.
It should be, yeah. It should be.
That's our sponsor. The Shelf of Shame, sponsored by Fresh Productions.
Fresh Productions,
and a couple little B-roll shots of our Shelf of Shame item.
I don't want the sponsorship.
Yeah, it'd be pretty funny. Matt, again, we've spent way too much time. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with this. There's a lot of content there.
Sorry, that's a lot of chopping for you, man.
Whatever. We'll sort it out. Honestly, like whatever. It's gonna end up being an hour and a half. So be it. It was good. It was fun. I enjoyed having you on. I can't wait till we do it again. It's always a blast hanging out with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely, Emery. It's been great. Yeah.
Let's wrap it up for the night. And everyone, thanks for watching. Matt Howard, changing a battery.
Yo.
Holy smokes, Matt, did you have to charge a battery?
Oh man, we've got on we're just starting here. Come on, you're teasing.
Okay. Now, the Matt and Emery show. You ready?
Sure. Where's our agenda gone?
Welcome back to another episode, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, everyone. Do you want to do the intro?
What do I say? Did you send me stuff to ask stuff or not? Or do you know what? Let me do a balls up and then you can fix it. All right?
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that term, a balls up.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Nick Lamb. I'm from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, or Moose Jaw, England. Too bad we haven't got a Moose Jaw, England, isn't it? Welcome back, guys, to Just Two Camera Guys. Welcome back, guys. Just Two Camera Guys. Are you going to say I am Emery first?
No, I thought you.
No, I'll say I'm Nick.
Yeah.
You're going to say I'm Nick.
You're Nick. I should say I'm Nick.
You're Nick. I'm Emery.
We should both be Nick. I think that's pretty.
If we just put a pause, I think I hear a kid.
Okay.
I'll be right back. It's just my wife. Don't worry. I was like, oh, she's got hockey tonight. I thought she'd left already, but she hasn't.
Oh, that's good. It's good she's still playing hockey then too. Like that probably gets some of the stress out.
Rips it up, mate. Yeah. There's some right chippy women out there. Yeah. Like there's been some fights going on.
What?
Oh yeah. Oh man.
There's no fights at our hockey, so if Tiff ever wants, she's Sunday nights at Pile of Butte. She can come out.
I was like, I'll tell her. I'd be like that too if I could skate.
Yeah. And then if Tiff has any single friends that play hockey, they're also welcome to come. Like the first 3 games, he never said a word. And then I started making fun of his sweaters, and then he sort of opened up, and then I found out he was an Oiler fan, so then we started talking about.
Oh, you besties, hey?
It's way too late. Let's jump off this thing.
Yeah, nice talking with you. Thanks for getting me involved.
Yeah, for sure. It's an absolute ride. It's been fun. It's nice. Yeah, it's nice not to talk to Nick all the time.
No, you missed him. You must have said Nick. You owe him about $20 now for saying his name, Nick.
Beauty. What song was that? It sounded familiar.
That was your music. That's your music.
Really?
Yeah, that's your intro outro music. You know, if you took that and put it over the top of your music, you wouldn't even tell it. Guarantee you.
That's too good. Yeah.
My voice of an angel. Come on out.